Testing 409. This is a test. This is a test. Can anybody hear this? This is a test. Can anybody hear this? 4:17 AM. This is a test. Can anybody hear this? Or 17 AM. This is a test. Can anybody hear this? Or 17. This is the test. Can anybody hear this? Or 17. This is the test. Can anybody hear this? Or 17.
From the little dial at the bottom of traffic lights, to the hole in lollipop sticks, and the clever cap on utility knives, here are 10 more everyday things you probably don't know the purpose of.
Amazing!
Number 10. Utility knife caps. Many utility knife blades have to be snapped off in order to have a nice new sharp blade, but people usually go out of their way to grab pliers or gloves to snap off the blade. There's no need though, because there's a break-off slot right here at the back. You can pry off this part at the back of the knife to use that to break the blade off. First of all, slide the blade back to be safe, and then pry off the back. With some knives, you'll need to pry it off with a butter knife, but this one has a handy pin which you can easily push in to slide it off. To prepare the blade, make sure to set it just at the right point, where there's only one break-off line showing. Then lock the blade by pulling back this tab. Now simply insert the blade into the back of the cap and snap it off. If you're lucky enough to afford 2 knives, you don't even need to take off the end. Just use the end of one of the knives to snap the blade off the other. Finally, it's best to wrap the snapped part in tape to ensure that no one gets cut when it's disposed of. Number 9. Little hole between the lens and flash on an iPhone. If you have one of the latest iPhone models, you've probably seen the little hole between the flash and the lens and wondered what it's for. It's actually a tertiary microphone. Yes, that's right. The iPhone has 3 microphones. The other ones are located at the bottom near the headphone port and on the front next to the FaceTime camera. On other phones they usually exist at the bottom. So why so many microphones on the iPhone, you may ask? The reason for it on the back is quite simple. It helps to capture sound better when you're recording a video than if the hole is facing out the front or side of the device. Also, it's great for noise cancellation, so the person on the other end can hear you crystal clear even if you're in a crowded bus. The end result is a more clear, crisp sound. Unless, of course, your phone case is designed to survive a nuclear apocalypse. Number 8. Button on lids. As a child, these buttons on drink lids can provide you with an easy 5 minutes of entertainment, but they actually serve a practical function too. Most of the buttons are labelled, whether it's the variety of hot drink or whether or not it's labelled as diet. These buttons are there to help you rid of the days of having to try all the drinks to figure out which one is yours. Instead, you just have to simply check the lid. Number 7. Beer bottle neck. The neck of the beer bottle isn't just a sleek design feature or a convenient alleyway for the beer to make its way into your mouth. It was in fact designed this way for people to hold, so that as little body heat as possible is transferred into the beer, making the drinking experience more pleasurable for everyone involved. Unless, of course, you happen to be the taxi driver who is taking you home at the end of the night. Number 6. Metal plate on a stapler. Most of you staple things without regard to the way in which you're binding the thing that's being stapled. Surprisingly, there are actually two ways to staple things. The way you're probably familiar with is the permanent method of stapling. It's the default setting on a stapler. Yes, there are actually settings on a stapler. It all has to do with this metal plate or anvil, which has two rows of holes. You've probably folded in when the temporary method of staple, it really remove a pinned staple, but larger old school models do. Grab one pop stick. Even though this hole at the end of a lollipop stick looks like a hole on a flute or whistle, it isn't there to whistle through when you're finished with your lollipop inside the hole. Just think about it, with and the candy more securely onto the stick, allowing it to stay in place until you're done with consuming your diabetes-friendly food. Ice cream scoops are used for. I mean, it's kind of in the name. However, you might be surprised to know that they come in a multitude of different colours, but these colours aren't for aesthetics. These colours indicate the size of the scoop, and these sizes are based on the number of level scoops it takes to fill a 32-ounce cup. Then just refer to this table. It should be noted that looking for an absolute is actually to measure the scoop, which takeaway drinks are actually a lot more versatile than you'd first think, as not only do they stop you from spilling sticky liquid all over yourself, but they also double as a coaster. The different lid sizes are conveniently scaled up for the base of the cup to Number 2. Hole in a pen cap. A common misconception about the hole in the end of a ballpoint pen lid is that it's there to stop the ink from drying up, or it's a whistle. That's just wrong. This hole is in fact there because many people, usually kids, have an obnoxious habit of chewing pen caps, which sucking it. That's breathing. This also a hole in Lego heads. If the hole wasn't present, then the cap may let elements like pen exist. Cap has led to a decline in pen cap choking deaths. This isn't the only use. Vent hole prevents a small vacuum from building up. Change of pressure, such as on an airplane. Dial under the button at a pedestrian crossing before, as it's rather hidden, but it has an interesting use. If you've never noticed it, then take a guess as to what it's for. I'll be impressed if you can figure it out. It isn't just something to keep bored children occupied, but actually exists as an indication to deaf and blind people for when the green man is showing and when it's safe to be crossing the road. Designed by the University of Nottingham, the dial spins when the lights show that it's okay for you to cross, although of course you must proceed with caution, as you never know when some idiot will be speeding around the corner. They exist in the UK, but I'm not sure if they exist elsewhere. I'll be interested to hear if they do. They're a pretty clever and helpful design feature. So that concludes this video, but don't worry, there are plenty more design quirks you can discover, but I'm not sure if they exist, although of course, and when it's safe to be crossing the road, to keep bored children occupied, but actually exists as an indication to deaf and blind people for when the green man is showing and when it's safe to be crossing the road. Designed by the University of Nottingham, the dial spins when the lights show that it's okay for you to cross, although of course you must proceed with caution, as you never know when some idiot will be speeding around the corner. They exist in the UK, but I'm not sure if they exist elsewhere. I'll be interested to hear if they do. They're a pretty clever and helpful design feature. So that concludes this video.
Everything in my life has something to do with coffee. I believe in a former life I was coffee.
When you think of laws, you probably think of agreed upon behaviors that are designed to keep us safe and to make sure society runs smoothly. Nevertheless, every country seems to have its own laws and regulations, and while most of them make sense and serve a purpose, others can really make you scratch your head. We take a look at some particularly interesting things you probably didn't know were illegal.
Amazing!
Number 9. Gambling in the library. It's hard to imagine this was ever a problem, but in the UK, public libraries sometimes became havens for unruly behavior, gambling being among them. This forced Parliament to implement the Library Offences Act in 1898. Anyone convicted of disorderly behavior, obscenity, or gambling within the library was subject to a 40-shilling fine. It may seem like common sense, yet this law is still in effect to dissuade the riffraff, although it no longer applies to public libraries. If you're that desperate to lay down bets in a library, maybe you should be browsing the self-help section. Number 8. Wearing armor in the Houses of Parliament. In typical English fashion, The fact there was even a need to make this illegal speaks to the he had been Parliament on certain issues. If you plan to visit the Houses of Parliament, England today technically belonged to her, making it illegal to harvest them without prior consent. This actually happened in 2004 when a Welsh fisherman found himself in hot water after he caught a 10-foot sturgeon. However, the Scottish government determined it was legal, citing an old law that it was okay to claim stranded whales on behalf of the Crown, just so long as they were too large to be drawn to land by a wain pulled by 6 oxen. Number 6.
Life hacking often focuses on small pleasures and problems. For instance, the proper way to eat a hamburger, or making your phone's speaker louder and more resounding. But what about big picture activities that consume such a big space? Let's holy. Among the many common mistakes made by home, where folks refuse to recycle cans. A large, full bag of garbage so difficult and yucky to pull out and haul to the dumpster. Number 4. Don't just hang around. Recent studies show that there may be some unorthodox cures for a hangover, an old infection. As the people merely believe they're multitasking when and you're 95% of Americans seconds handle then dispose again. When you breathe, only breathe. Instead, try expanding your stomach as you breathe in, then use your chest muscles to breathe out. Of garbage so difficult and yucky to pull out and haul to the dumpster. Number 4. Don't just hang around. Recent studies show that there may be some unorthodox cures for a hangover, an old infection. As the people merely believe they're multitasking when and you're 95% of Americans seconds handle then dispose again. When you breathe, only breathe. Instead, try expanding your stomach as you breathe in, then use your chest muscles to breathe out. Garbage so difficult and yucky to pull out and haul to the dumpster. Number 4. Don't just hang around. Recent studies show that there may be some unorthodox cures for a hangover, an old infection. As the merely believe they're multitasking when and you're 95% of Americans seconds and then dispose again. When you breathe, only breathe. Instead, try expanding your stomach as you breathe in, then use your chest muscles to breathe out.